Queen Sugar Season 4 Episode 12 discussion. So this episode, I don't really have a theme for it because I just don't. This episode was really going at different angles. There were moments where we had extreme highs, then there's moments where, you know, it was an extreme low. So I really don't know what to call this episode. Confusion at best. That's what I can call this episode. Confusion, triumph, and trials and triumphs. There you have it. That's what my theme for this episode would be. Trials and triumphs. And I actually got that quote from Violet in this episode, which I'll get to in a moment. Anyway, this episode opens up with Micah and Charlie basically getting ready for Micah's graduation party because Micah has been accepted into Harvard. So Charlie, we see, has on like this Harvard sweatshirt and she's very excited for Micah, although we can kind of see that Micah isn't really exactly feeling it. And at this point of the episode, we're not quite sure why. We just can clearly tell that Charlie is more excited than Micah for this opportunity. However, Micah pretty much just rolls with this. So we know there is ultimately going to be some sort of graduation party that is going to occur because that is what we see in the opening episode that is being set up. Prosper lets Charlie know that he is actually unable to vote and participate in the vote for councilman or councilwoman in St. Joe because apparently he has received notification that he is not a resident of the parish, which is crazy because Charlie is like, okay, he's been a resident of parish for a very long time. However, what Prosper just found out is not only did he receive notification that he's not a resident of the parish, but that there are many other residents who are now receiving notification that they are not actual residents of the parish, which is going to cause an issue when it comes to getting out and voting for Charlie, supporting Charlie. So now we understand immediately that someone is tampering with the voting system to pretty much sabotage Charlie's chances of winning councilwoman. We also have Frances, who comes to Charlie's campaign site to confront her in regards to Jacob, and we can see that Frances is very much aware that Jacob is smitten with Charlie, and she's like, I just don't see what my son rather sees in you. And I believe personally that Frances is really envious of Charlie. I believe that she thought her white privilege, her whiteness, her presence, her money, all of that would intimidate Charlie and cause Charlie to go run and hide. I truly believe, unfortunately, in her mind, and there are other individuals out here like this, whether it be class or race, these individuals feel like they're superior to those who are complete opposite of them, and that could be within the bank account status, class status, or even race. Individuals feel like that they're superior accordingly. So I feel like with Frances, she's very angry at this point because Charlie is not backing down to her regardless of how much Frances feels she's superior to Charlie. So at this point, Frances ends up leaving as these deputies arrive to question Charlie about the fire at the Queen Sugar Mill. And the way these deputies are questioning Charlie, they're questioning her in a manner as if she is actually the one that is going to be the suspect of the fire that occurred at Queen Sugar for her own meal. It's almost as if not even almost, they really are questioning her as if she is now being considered a person of interest when it comes to the arson of the Queen Sugar Mill, which is quite interesting. And then they even brought up Micah's involvement in the arson that occurred that Micah's friend took the fall for. They brought up Micah's participation in that as well. And that is when Charlie was like, okay, I see where this is going. So if you all want to ask me any more questions, you're just gonna have to wait for my attorney. Then we have Violet, who ends up going over to Nova's house and basically asking or demanding Nova to give her Jimmy Dale's address because Violet is holding that box that we have been seeing her carry around for quite some time, ever since this season opened up with the whole Jimmy Dale situation. She's been carrying this box. I call it a box of pain, and I think maybe that's what she called it too in this episode, but it's basically this box where Vi keeps all the things, I guess, that is relative to the pain that Jimmie Dale has caused her, including the miscarriage that I assume miscarriage that she may have had due to Jimmie Dale's abuse. So she's been carrying around all of that in this box and holding on to it. And I guess at this episode, she wants to confront Jimmie Dale with this box and give it to him to hand over this pain and this burden that she's been carrying around for quite some time now. It pretty much seems as though she's looking for closure with Jimmie Dale, and she feels the need to do it in person. So Nova already pretty much gets that's what she wants, but Nova's like, wait, this is going to be too dangerous. Listen, I'll give you the address, but you got to let me come with you, and you got to let me drive and let me talk to you. She's still trying to mend her relationship with Violet. And Violet's like, listen, I don't know about the talking. That's going to have to be done whenever I'm ready. But sure, you can come with me. Now, I don't know about you all, but when Violet consented to Nova riding with her, that really made me feel good, because I'm like, oh snaps, I feel like their relationship is mending. This is a good sign, because at first she couldn't even be within eyeshot of Nova, so to see, or eyesight of Nova, so to see that she's at least willing to ride in a car with her, which really requires being in close proximity with someone, that really gave me hope that their relationship is getting ready to mend. So meanwhile, we have Ralph with Blue, who ends up I guess having Blue clean his room, which was kind of a mess. And as Ralph is going through the things in the room, he ends up in the closet where he finds this box that's never been opened. It's a gift from his father that was made out to Blue. And I thought that was interesting. I don't think they ever opened the box in the episode, so it's going to be interesting to find out what exactly is in the box. However, there was a scene where like Ralph pretty much shows Darla the box, and she's like really surprised about it too. So I'm kind of interested in as well what is in this box. But anyway, speaking of Darla, Ralph has a conversation with Darla, and Darla is like, listen, you can't keep Blue away from Nova. You got to forgive her, because he needs all the people who love him around him right now, and Nova is one of those people. And I was very surprised to hear Darla say this, because of the fact that Darla has been heavily impacted by the release of Nova's book. And Darla made it no secret that she's just as upset. However, she's able to see the need for Blue to have family around him regardless, despite that situation, despite her pain and her feelings towards Nova. She's able to discern that regardless, that is still Blue's aunt, and Blue is requesting his aunt. He wants to be around his aunt, and he needs to do so. So I really appreciate the fact that Darla is able to forgive Nova in such a manner that she's like, well, Nova is no harm to our son, and he needs family right now. But of course, Ralph was saying that he does not feel that way right now. It's going to take him some time to get there, and that he respects what Darla is saying, but that he's just not there yet, which I can completely understand. Meanwhile, Violet and Nova are on this road trip to go see Jimmie Dale, because Nova knows where Jimmie Dale stays, of course, due to the fact that she had communication with him in regards to her book. And while on this trip, Violet confronts Nova about the pain that she has caused her because of that book release, and how she felt like, or she perceived that Nova wrote the book from just focusing completely on Violet's trials rather than her triumph. Now, those are exactly Violet's words, just about, not mine, which is why I said I really think this episode is called, should be themed as Trials and Triumphs. But anyway, Nova didn't exactly perceive it that way. So it really surprised Nova that Violet felt like Nova was only focusing on her trials rather than focusing on how she overcame those things. So that was one of the things that Violet was really disappointed in Nova in when it came to the book, because she did not want to, I feel like she did not want to be perceived as weak and as defeated. And I feel like she wanted Nova to pretty much express more in the book that how she got over, how she overcame that abuse, and that she did not succumb to it, that she was not what Violet may consider to be weak. And not that anyone that is a victim of abuse is weak, But I completely understand what Violet is saying to that aspect. So anyway, they finally get to Jimmy Dale's house. Oh, snaps. Now, first of all, in them episodes ago, when we saw Jimmy Dean initially, Jimmy Dean was looking good. Am I right or am I wrong? Jimmy Dean was looking, he looked polished, okay? He looked pretty. His clothes was nice and crisp. His beard was nice and crisp. Child, when they rolled up on that house of Jimmy Dale's, that house was broke down. Them stairs looked like you try to step on one stair, all the stairs would just give away. The house was tore up from the floor up, okay? Then Jimmy Dale come out and almost made me throw up. I mean, he looked a hot mess. And I was like, really, Jimmy Dale? Really? Instead of getting your life together, you out here abusing women? Really, Jimmy Dale? But of course, that doesn't surprise me. That pretty much seems like that would be a classic characteristic of an abuser anyway. So they pulled up and Violet gets out. She goes to the door, knocks at the door. She tells Nova to stay in the car, but Nova, hardhead Nova, doesn't listen. And to be honest, if it was myself personally and it was a family member who was making the same move that Violet was making, I honestly wouldn't have stayed in the car either. I'm down for whatever, you know, to protect my family. So I would have got out the car too, especially if it's a woman. Yes, I'm going to get out the car and assist my female family member in that situation, because I know what could happen, what could transpire. So if I can do anything to be there, especially and assist physically, hopefully it doesn't have to come to that, but whatever I can do, yes, I'm going to do my best to quarterback the situation. But anyway, so Nova gets out as well. She's kind of standing in the background. Jimmy Dale comes out and he's making his smart ass remarks as usual, and Violet is like, here's this box, you know, this box of pain that I've been carrying around, and it's almost as if she expected Jimmy Dale to reach some big revelation and apologize for the past. However, Jimmy Dale, we can see, is clearly not concerned, very callous. Nothing has changed about him over, I guess, the years. He is an a-hole, and he's just like, what did you expect? Like, am I supposed to feel sorry? Am I supposed to care? So Nova is like, you know what, Violet, like, you know what, let's just go. What you're looking for, he can't give you. Let's just go. And as they turn their back to leave, Jimmy Dale takes the box and slams it on the porch and breaks it, pretty much startling Violet and Nova, because it's like, you don't know what he could do. We don't know if he might try to snap and physically hurt them or anything, but you know, so it really startled them. And honestly, I'm watching it, it kind of startled me. I was wondering what he was gonna do next too. And Violet, she just turned around and she said her piece, and she stood her ground, and she said to Jimmy Dale something to the effect of, you know what, I won. I won. Look at how you're living. Look at your life. You know, all the things you tried to make me feel like I was worthless, like I wasn't anybody. That's actually who you are, and it's evident by the way you are living right now, and you have always been living. So I actually won. I don't need you to acknowledge me. I don't need you to acknowledge my pain. I don't even need your apology. I know I have won. I have the money, and this is Violet's words. I have the house. I have the business. I have the great husband. I won. You have nothing for me. You have no power over me. And let me tell you all, Jimmy Dale's blood was boiling. He was angry. It was interesting. And so I'm thinking like, okay, he's going to try something. He's going to try to get physical, because he's pissed off. He's pissed off right now. So when Violet and Nova turns to leave, a young lady comes up holding a grocery bag. And she realizes like Jimmy Dale has company. She sees Nova and Violet there. So she's like, oh, I'm sorry, you know, Jimmy, I didn't know, and I'm sorry I'm late making, I don't know if she said dinner or lunch, I can't remember. So she got like a bruise on her face. So immediately Violet realizes that this is more than likely a young lady who is seeing Jimmy Dale and he's beating on her. And basically Violet identified herself in this young lady. She sees her past self in this frightened young lady who we know is now the current Violet. This young lady is now who Violet used to be. So Violet quickly recognizes that and tells the young lady, like, listen, you don't have to stay in this situation. I know what is happening. I know he hit you. I know he's the reason for that scar on your face. I remember those days of not getting his dinner dinner just right, if it's too hot or too cold or whatever the things that Violet said. Meanwhile, Jimmy Dale is like exploding in the background because he doesn't want Violet persuading his new punching bag to become independent of him and free of him. So he's boiling in the background, and Violet in the meanwhile pays him no attention and continues to encourage the young lady to leave Jimmy Dale. And the young lady's like, okay, but if I leave, then what if he finds me? And Violet's like, if he finds you, he finds me. I know a place where you can go. So at this point, Jimmy Dale is furious and he's getting ready to come off the porch and try something, but Nova immediately pulls out her phone, which I thought was so classic. She pulls out her phone to record Jimmy Dale, like, if you try something, we got you on camera and you best believe you will go down for it. So I just thought that was awesome. They managed to get the young lady in the vehicle, and Jimmy Dale did absolutely nothing because he's no fool. He would have been on camera and he would have took his behind to jail for a very long time. So they managed to escape that situation. And we also see in the next scene, like, Violet and Nova drops the young lady off at a domestic violence shelter, where Violet basically tells the staff, take care of this young lady, and lets the young lady know, like, when you get out, there is a job waiting for you at my diner. What I also thought was interesting is that it does not seem like this is the first time that Violet has done this, because she seemed very familiar with the staff. So that also lets you know that Violet is out here, basically probably has been out here saving other young women who find themselves in situations such as the one that Violet had found herself in for many years. So that was really an awesome scene. That was like for me personally, that was the biggest highlight of this episode. So overall, Violet and Nova pretty much mend their relationship, or at least are beginning to mend their relationship, because we see that Violet eventually sits down with Nova and expresses to her how free that she feels now that she has finally confronted Jimmy Dale. And I truly believe, even though, Nova, there's no excuse for how she went about making her book, ultimately, at least for Violet's situation, Nova contributed to Violet getting closure. And I think that is the perspective that Violet has now on the entire situation, because it seems like, she pretty much offered Nova a peace offering with the tea and a slice of pie, or was it coffee? I don't know, but I just really enjoyed seeing that scene and seeing the two smile and really interact with each other yet again. So I definitely can see them moving forward in a positive direction after this episode. We also have Darla and Violet, who, speaking of mending relationships, because Darla went over to Violet's diner to hand her 1 month sobriety chip as a way of thanking Violet for taking care of her when she relapsed. And I really appreciated that scene as well. Like I said, Darla and Violet are able to identify with one another's pain, and healing even. So I really appreciated that scene as well. Next, we have Charlie at her campaign site talking to the workers and volunteers at her campaign site in regards to the current situation, how there are residents of the parish who are being told they are not actual residents, so they won't be able to vote, such as the case with Prosper. But then the Latinx residents have had their voting site moved to a location outside of town, which is very ridiculous. But again, this is being orchestrated by individuals who want to make it difficult for Charlie to win, so they have to make it difficult for her supporters to vote. And basically, Charlie is having this rah-rah speech with the campaign site, letting them know, despite what is happening, we will not be defeated. We will make this happen. And they're even coming up with plans on how to have transportation sent out to residents, especially the Latinx community, to get them to the voting site. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Like, Charlie, that's who Charlie is. She's not easily defeated, and that's awesome. Great councilwoman material, by the way. Anyway, moving on, we have Nova, who reveals to Charlie that the old world energy, the guy that they've been trailing, Hank Miller, is not actually, he's not actually connected to old world energy, but that old world energy seems to be some sort of shell company for a company called the Beckerton Group, owned by someone by the name of Parker Campbell, which is interesting in itself, because basically we're learning, you know, they've got to be hiding something if they created some sort of shell company. Old world energy serves as a shell company for something larger called the Beckerton Group. So something is brewing. They basically don't know who the face of the enemy is. They don't know what they're dealing with. They just know it's happening. So this is getting more and more interesting, and not to mention a little more creepy, because it's a lot of layers involved to it, which is making it harder to get to the center of, or get to exactly who it is they're supposed to fight. How do you fight an enemy that you don't even know who the enemy is? We have Charlie, who even had a little quote where she said, if they can hide their existence, what else is they capable of? And again, that's powerful. You know, the fact that they're able to, you can't fully identify who they are. They can come at you and identify who you are, identify what your business is, and come straight for you, but you can't even identify who they are and what their business is. So that is that's very interesting. So next we have Micah's graduation party. At Micah's graduation party, Blue is insistent upon sitting next to Nova, and that is an issue because, of course, Ralph and Nova are currently not getting along. So it's one thing for Ralph to not be talking to Nova, but it's another thing for him to put Blue in the middle. Blue wants to sit next to his Aunt Nova, but because Ralph is upset with Nova, he expects Blue to stay by him, but he's not letting Blue know what is happening. So it's really a little childish when you think about it. It's not, you know, really adult behavior or mature behavior, but it's interesting because I feel like Ralph, he just doesn't see that because of his anger with Nova at the moment. So there was a point where Nova takes Blue to the restroom or the bathroom, and Blue is like, listen, what's going on between you and Aunt Nova? Why are you mad at her? Which completely stuns Ralph Angel, because he was unaware that Blue was aware that he was upset with Nova. But in this scene, we also get to see just how mature children can be and how they can pick up on adult interaction, how they can pick up on energy, how they can pick up on emotions when it comes to adults. No matter how hard adults try to hide it, or no matter how much they think they are hiding how they feel about each other, children still can pick up on that energy. So Ralph has this conversation with Blue, and Blue basically lets Ralph know he too fell out with a friend, which I thought was so cute. He lets Ralph know, like, you know, he fell out with a friend, but they end up being friends again. And Ralph is like, really? So how did you do it? How did you move forward with that? And Blue said, oh, you know, well, someone just mediated us. Basically, I forgot who the person was, but they made us see like we have more in common than we have different. And the advice that Blue was giving his father, Ralph, was just so sweet and so real, so pure, that Ralph Angel couldn't help but to smile about it, because it showed, I think he was just very proud of his son and how mature his son was. And I think it held up a mirror to himself, that here he has his young son, this little boy, who is able to handle conflict better than he is, and he's a grown adult. After that conversation, Ralph Angel lets up on Blue sitting by Nova, and he kind of releases Blue. Now he himself may not be ready to speak with Nova, but he finally lets go of Blue and allows Blue to sit by his Aunt Nova. And I thought that was just really awesome. However, you know, it's Queen Sugar. We can't close out an episode happy. We got to close out an episode with drama. So when things looked like they were going completely well, they took a quick turn. Charlie stands up to give this huge speech about how proud she is of Micah for getting into Harvard. Now, mind you, everyone at the graduation party in attendance is Ralph Angel, Violet, I believe Prosper is there, Charlie, Nova. You know what? I'm not sure if Prosper is there. I can't remember. But Charlie, you have Blue, you have Nova, you have Micah, and you have Micah's girlfriend, Kiki. These are all the individuals, as far as I remember, that are in attendance. Hollywood was not in this episode, by the way. But anyway, Charlie is giving this big speech about how proud she is of Micah, and she even gives him a Rolex for his graduation present, which I thought was very funny. I have my issues with that present, but anyway, after we start to see Micah's demeanor change, his countenance completely changes to a demeanor of disappointment or whatever it was, but we knew something was brewing. So suddenly Micah stands up and he announces that he actually rescinded his acceptance letter to Harvard in order to go to Xavier University locally. When I tell you, it looked like Charlie wanted to jump over the coffee table and whoop her sons behind. I mean, she was furious. Despite Violet and Nova attempting to reassure Charlie and Micah that his decision was okay and that he would still be just as successful if he went to any other school, it did not matter. Charlie had it made up in her mind that the best for Micah was Harvard University. Now, all of us can argue all day long when it comes to what we want specifically for our children or what we deem to be the best for our child. But to be honest, that is really up to each parent and their child and their situation. But he can be told whatever path his parents have for him, they can tell him to go on that path all day long. But at the end of the day, they are not the ones who have to walk that path. He does, which is why he should have just as much of a right to decide what he wants to do as they believe they should, because ultimately he's the one that has to live it. So in the end, Charlie is upset pretty much with everyone in the room for not encouraging her side of the argument. And I think the most hurtful thing she said to Micah in this scene was the fact that you are throwing away this opportunity that could have allowed you to employ many others. How dare you? I think that was the most hurtful statement that she made, because you can really clearly see on Micah's face how that statement hurt him. So I think, you know, it was very rough. This was a very heavy scene. Like I said, it'd be nice to see the one of these episodes close out on a happy note, but of course they got to keep the show going, keep us all interested. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens next after this. But yeah, Charlie isn't too happy, not to mention Nova is kind of walking on eggshells as it is. And definitely in this scene, Charlie was backing up Micah's decision, which, Nova was walking on eggshells with Charlie. And Nova was backing up Micah's decision, which really had Charlie like side-eyeing and getting irritated. So Nova better be careful too. But I do like that about Nova. You know, she's not afraid to stand in her truth and follow what she believes, regardless of how anyone else feels about it. Like, she's not afraid to do that. I do respect that about Nova. But Micah did make sure he made it clear that no one knew what he was doing. He told absolutely no one about his decision to go to Xavier. So it's like Charlie could not put it on anyone. She couldn't put it on Nova. She couldn't put it on Kiki's influence. Micah literally made this decision on his own. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next episodes, especially regarding Micah and his college decision. You know, the Beckerton group, figuring out what is that all about, figuring out the voting situation, how this is going to get worse, figuring out what Francis plan on doing. Like, this is going to be interesting. But y'all let me know what y'all think in the comment section. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. See y'all next week. Peace.